Do rights come from God, the Constitution, the Supreme Court, or the government? Our future depends on learning the truth. I will explain 4 positions, show you which one is true, and why the other 3, which most people believe, are wrong and are leading to the destruction of our country. We begin with what is true. Slide. Our Declaration of Independence says our rights come from God. Thus, our rights predate and pre-exist the Constitution. Our Declaration says this. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. From this one paragraph, we learn 3 foundational principles of our constitutional republic. 1, our rights are unalienable and come from God. 2, the purpose of civil government is to protect our God-given rights. And 3rd, civil government is legitimate only when it operates with our consent. The U.S. Constitution is the formal expression of our consent. We, the people. Thus, the federal government operates with our consent only when it obeys the Constitution. Because the Declaration identifies the Creator as grantor of rights, we look to the Bible or to the natural law to see what those rights are. These sources reveal many rights: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, self-defense, to inherit, earn, and keep property, the right and duty to demand that civil authorities obey the law, the right to live our lives free from interference from civil government, the right to worship God. The distinguishing characteristic of all God-given or natural rights is this: each right may be held and enjoyed at no cost or expense to anyone else. Our God-given rights do not put us in conflict with each other. And 2, we may look them up for ourselves. They are not subject to someone else's interpretation. Here is the 2nd position. Many believe that our rights come from amendments to the Constitution. So they speak of our constitutional rights, our First Amendment right to free speech, our Second Amendment right to bear arms. From time to time, they clamor to have additional rights added to the Constitution, such as the Equal Rights Amendment or the Parental Rights Amendment. But it is a dreadful mistake to think that our rights come from the Constitution. I will show you 2 reasons why this is a pernicious error. The first reason: it is logically incoherent. The preamble to the Constitution says, "We, the people of the United States, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States." We, the people, ordained and established the Constitution. We are the ones who created the federal government with its 3 branches: legislative, executive, judicial. We are the ones who gave the federal government permission to exist and told it exactly what it may do when we assigned a few enumerated powers to each branch. We are the creator. The federal government is merely our creature. And creature isn't my word. It's Alexander Hamilton's word. He uses that precise word when he describes the federal government's relation to us. It is our creature. So, the Constitution is about these specific powers which we, the people, delegated to the federal government. It is not about our rights, which come from God and thus predate and pre-exist the Constitution. Here is the second reason it is grievous error to say our rights come from the Constitution. Article 3, Section 2, Clause 1 of the Constitution states, "The judicial power shall extend to all cases arising under this Constitution." Listen carefully. If our rights come from the Constitution, that clause, Article 3, Section 2, Clause 1, is what gives the federal judges power over our rights because they arise under the Constitution. We must correct our thinking and stop babbling about our constitutional rights. When judges have power to adjudicate our rights are no longer unalienable. You hold them at the pleasure of 5 judges on the Supreme Court. I will show you how they have perverted the First Amendment. Let's look at exactly what it says. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. The First Amendment doesn't grant any rights to anybody. All it does is prohibit Congress from making laws restricting these activities. Note also that the First Amendment restricts only Congress. It does not address states. States may establish any religion they want. And of course, states may restrict speech. Traditionally, states have always done so, with laws against slander, libel, fraud, obscenity, incitement to violence, shouting fire in a crowded theater. But federal judges treat the First Amendment as the source of our rights to free speech. Since it arises under the Constitution, they claim judicial power over it, and thus power to decide what speech is protected by the First Amendment and what speech is not protected. And if they decide it is not protected, you can't say it. They claim power under the First Amendment to regulate corporate political speech. They claim power under the First Amendment to force us to take down postings of the 10 Commandments. They forbid children to pray in public schools. They claim power under the First Amendment to overturn state laws which properly restrict speech. In the Westboro Baptist case, the father of an American soldier who was killed in action sued the Westboro people on tort theories of defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress as permitted by the law of the state in which the funeral took place. But 8 judges on the Supreme Court ignored the state laws and held that the Westboro people have a First Amendment right to stand on street corners at funerals of American soldiers, waving signs saying, "Thank God for IEDs," that's improvised explosive devices. "Thank God for dead soldiers. God hates fags." That is protected speech, you see. So is porn. Oh yes, pornographers have a First Amendment right to disseminate porn. So state laws outlawing porn also bite the dust. But posting the Ten Commandments is not protected speech. Neither is praying in public schools. Since it's not protected speech, they ban it. Do you see how perverted their rulings are? Do you see how they undermine the moral order? When we babble about our constitutional rights, when we clamor to have new rights added to the Constitution, we are submitting our rights to the tender mercies of federal judges, because Article 3, Section 2, Clause 1 gives them power over all cases arising under this Constitution. This is why we must always insist that our rights have a source, Almighty God, which transcends the Constitution. And think, why would the creator of the Constitution, that's us, grant to our creature, the judicial branch of the federal government, the power to determine the scope and extent of our rights? It makes no sense at all. You ask, why did the framers add the first 10 amendments if they were such a bad idea? There was controversy over this. Alexander Hamilton warned that bills of rights were dangerous because they grant a pretext for regulating to those inclined to usurp. And he was right. The first 10 amendments have given the Supreme Court a pretext for usurping power over our rights, as well as over state laws which restrict speech which 5 people on the Supreme Court want to legalize. But Hamilton's warnings were ignored and the first 10 amendments added because some states refused to ratify the Constitution without them. So, the proper way to look at the first 10 amendments is this. They are not the source of our rights, since our rights come from God and thus transcend the Constitution. They are merely a partial list of some things the federal government may not do. They may not take our guns. They may not ban public expressions of the Christian faith. And they may not restrict our speech. And some things they must do. They must give accused persons a fair trial in that limited category of criminal cases over which the federal government has jurisdiction. Here is the third position. Judges on the Supreme Court have claimed in recent decades that the source of our rights is the Constitution. As such, rights are discovered and defined from time to time by them.